Tyler Bertuzzi, a.k.a. the human backboard, is back as the Blackhawks look to extend their season-long point streak against the Seattle Kraken.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome on in to another game day preview edition of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcasting network, where we're proud to bring you your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman, also Blackhawks beat writer for Chicago Hockey Now. On today's episode, I'll start things off with the Blackhawks projected lineup for tonight at the United Center. Then in segment 2, I'll turn things over and we'll dive into the Kraken side of things. And make sure to stick with me all the way up until segment 3, as I'll discuss Roman Kantserov gunning for KHL history in his 21-year-old season over in Russia. But first, just a reminder to please go and check out ChicagoHockeyNow.com if you're enjoying everything I'm doing here covering the Blackhawks on Locked On Blackhawks. You'll definitely enjoy my Blackhawks written content as well. And then make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram. As I've touched on several times on the show recently, that's the account that I'm really trying to boost up here and grow next. Thank you all, as always, for all of your constant support. But happy game day, Blackhawks fans, as the Hawks wrap up their 4-game homestand tonight as they face off with the Seattle Kraken for the second time here in November. 7 p.m. puck drop at the UC, and it also marks the front end of the first back-to-back for the Blackhawks this season, as they'll also be in action tomorrow night out in Buffalo, taking on the lowly Sabres. So definitely would love for the Hawks to go and continue on with their strong play and make it 6 wins in a 7-game stretch before hitting the road and having some late-night travel to Buffalo here this evening, and also get a little revenge against the Kraken team that won the opening meeting 3-1 at Climate Pledge Arena just over 2 weeks ago, back on November 3rd. Jamie Alexiak, Matty Beniers, and Jordan Eberle were responsible for the 3 goals in that game for the Kraken. Andrei Burakovsky had the lone tally for Chicago. If y'all remember, it really wasn't a dreadful effort or performance by the Blackhawks that night, as they actually outshot Seattle 30-24 and led in scoring chances. But Joey Dickhord, as he seems to always do, simply got the better of the Hawks that night, stopping 29 of the 30 shots that he faced. Could be seeing him back in net for Seattle tonight at the UC. Since that loss, though, to Seattle back on November 3rd, the Hawks have been rolling here as they're 5-0-1 in their last 6 games ever since, and have their first 6-game point streak since all the way back in November of 2019. They'll be looking to make it 7 games in a row with a point for the first time since the 2018-19 campaign here tonight on home ice before traveling out to Buffalo. As far as the projected lineup, the Blackhawks just wrapped up the morning skate. This is actually something I want to try and do more here on the show, is pull up this graphic so you can all see the line combinations and the defensive pairings, the Blackhawks' full projected lineup. Tyler Bertuzzi was on the ice and was a full participant in the line rushes. Head coach Jeff Blashill just confirmed that he anticipates Bertuzzi will be back in for the Hawks tonight, which is a massive addition inside of their top 6. Jason Dickinson, by the way, also participated in the morning skate. We've seen him participate in practice over the last week or so. However, he's been vocal about saying he's not going to return until he's 100% healthy. And we've seen, throughout Dickinson's tenure here in Chicago, he's been banged up countless times, and kind of talked about how he might have rushed back from that shoulder injury that cost him a game, I believe. It was only 1 game earlier on in the season. He's been banged up all year long already, so he's not going to rush himself back this time, going to wait until he's fully 100% healthy. And even though he centered a line with Colton Dock and Sam Lafferty during the morning skate this morning, Blashill confirmed that he will not be activated off injured reserve before tonight's puck drop, so Dickinson is slated to miss an 8th consecutive game. Starting with the forward group for the Blackhawks tonight, honestly, with Tyler Bertuzzi returning, I was a little surprised that Blashill stuck with Ryan Green up on the top line with Bedard and Burakovsky, just because I know it hasn't been the greatest sample size because Bertuzzi's been injured. Burakovsky was out with an illness last week. So they haven't been together a ton this year, but when they have, I feel like they've generated a lot of scoring chances and done a lot of good things as a trio. So was a little surprised that Bertuzzi wasn't put back up on the top line in his return. However, there's no denying how well Ryan Green has fared, not only in these last couple of games, but whenever he's been forced to be bumped up to the top line with Connor Bedard. He's handled himself well in that situation, and I think deserves a lot of credit for being a guy who, even as someone who's been very high on Ryan Green these last couple of years, I've always talked about how I think he's going to be more so known for his defensive prowess and likely going to be a third or fourth line center for the Blackhawks long term. Well, he's showing off his offensive abilities here this season as well, which is super impressive as a rookie. Super impressive that he's been able to, bounce back and forth between the center and the wing spots and still find a way to make an impact. Real savvy play by Ryan Green on Connor Bedard's game-winning goal, not only with the pass, which I mentioned on yesterday's show, Bedsy pointed right to him after housing that shot past Dustin Wolf, but it was also a Connor Bedard-esque play from Ryan Green after skating over the blue line as he dropped the puck through his own legs. The Blackhawks actually shared an awesome overhead camera video of that play made by Ryan Green, but he goes through his own legs to kind of give himself some more time and space to make something happen in the offensive zone, and then lays just an A1 pass over to Connor Bedard's tape that ended up setting up his game-winning goal. So I do understand why Ryan Green is still there with Bedard and Burakovsky. It's because he's been working well with those guys, not only in these last two games, but as I said, whenever he's been bumped up to that top line this year. I just thought Tyler Bertuzzi would get the first opportunity, would be put right back into that spot whenever he was good to go. That doesn't seem like it's going to be the case here tonight, but Green does have points in back-to-back games, has meshed well along with Connor Bedard, who, my oh my, I mean, what does Bedard have in store for us here tonight? In the last 4 games the Blackhawks have played at the United Center, he's got 2 hat tricks. He's now got 22 points, 11 goals, and 11 assists over his last 11 games, with the Blackhawks having a 6-3-2 record during that stretch. 4th in the NHL in points, 4th in the NHL in goals. Just continues to take his game to a different level. The shot, the playmaking, the speed, the two-way play. I mean, the defensive hustle and the uptick in the faceoff dot. Every aspect of Connor Bedard's game has improved so far this year, and it truly has been unbelievable to watch. He wound up tallying a primary assist on Andre Burakovsky's goal in Seattle in the first meeting, the lone goal of the game for Chicago. And speaking of Burakovsky, he's, of course, a former member of the Seattle Kraken. Got a nice little video tribute back on November 3rd in his return to Climate Pledge Arena. He's actually recorded a point in 3 of 4 career games against Seattle, and like I said, had the only goal for the Blackhawks in the first meeting. And overall, Burakovsky continues to be excellent. He has 11 points over his last 9 games. Would love to see Bedard and Burakovsky take it to Seattle once again, but this time in a winning effort for the Blackhawks. The second line, Tyler Bertuzzi, Frankie Nazar, Oliver Moore. I talked yesterday about how Moore, I thought, had his best game as an NHLer so far in Tuesday's win, against the Calgary Flames. His first multi-point game up in the NHL this season. That now gives him 5 points over his last 6 games. And just with how he uses his speed to make things happen offensively and defensively, I continue to be impressed, and I think he continues to show that he belongs up in the NHL. What I will say, though, is I definitely understand why Blashill kept Green up on the top line, and I definitely also get the idea behind throwing Tyler Bertuzzi on the second line, right? Let Oliver Moore and Frankie Nazar, by the way, has points in back-to-back games since returning to the lineup. Go and let them create and be the playmakers and use their speed to generate stuff on the outside. Well, Tyler Bertuzzi, aka the human backboard, usually call him that for his power play prowess and how he frequently scores goals from right out in those dirty areas on centering feeds. But I think the idea is for him to try and do the same thing here at even strength along with Nazar and Oliver Moore. So I definitely get the makeup behind that line. Love to have Tyler Bertuzzi back in the lineup. He's such a key piece in so many different ways. On the third line for the Hawks, Teuvo Teravainen, I think he's, worked really well along with Frankie Nazar. I was a little surprised to see Blashill go and split those two up. However, if Jason Dickinson isn't fully healthy, this does give the Hawks a really sound defensive third line here. Teravainen, Donato, and Mikheyev, all responsible two-way players. Teravainen has points in 3 of his last 4 games. Didn't register a point against the Flames that snapped his 3-game point streak, but still has picked it up nicely here as of late. Ryan Donato, the former Seattle Kraken as well, like Burakovsky, snapped his 8-game goal drought to open the scoring for the Blackhawks in the first period on Tuesday. And then Ilya Mikheyev has been really strong against the Kraken in his career. His 5 goals lead all Blackhawk skaters in 11 career games against the Kraken franchise. So that looks like the third checking line for the Blackhawks here tonight. And then rounding things out down on the fourth line, Colton Dach and Sam Lafferty. Looks like Landon Slaggert is going to be the healthy scratch here this evening. I honestly thought the Blackhawks would go with Slaggert in the lineup over Lafferty just because Slaggert, as a 23-year-old, much younger than Lafferty, has a chance to be a core piece of the future here in Chicago. But Blashill giving him the night off. He's going to be watching from up in the press box. And with Dickinson being on the verge of returning from injured reserve, think there is a chance that happens tomorrow when the Hawks take on the Sabres. If not, then definitely on Sunday against the Colorado Avalanche. Once he returns, that will obviously give the Blackhawks 13 forwards on their active roster. They only like to dress 11 of them. So, as I mentioned a couple of days ago, do think Landon Slaggert, if the Hawks are able to get fully healthy, which is an if, I expect Slaggert to be reassigned down to the AHL. So that takes care of the Blackhawks forward group for tonight. Defensively, no real surprises. Alex Vlasic and Louis Crevier. Big Lou, by the way, extended his point streak to 4 games with a primary assist on Donato's goal against the Flames. He's now tied for the Blackhawks team lead in points among defensemen with 2 goals and 8 assists for 10 points. That's tied along with Artem Levshinov. Just continues to make the simple plays whenever he gets chances in the offensive zone, which doesn't happen all that frequently for Big Lou Crevier, as he starts 80% of his shifts in the defensive zone, but is still miraculously tied for the Blackhawks team lead in points among defensemen. Really impressive stuff from Lou Crevier. Wyatt Kaiser and Artie Levshinov as the second pairing. Levshinov didn't have his best stuff, I thought, against the Flames in his last time out, but still has been unreal to watch his growth and development over the last month or so now. He's second in rookie scoring on the second in rookie scoring among defensemen on the year and tied for most assists among all rookies in the NHL. So it's been an incredible start to the season for Artie after, a little bit of a bumpy ride during training camp in the preseason and even the first 3 games of the year. He's really tightened things up on the back end. And then Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy, the old veterans on the third pairing. That leaves Sammy Rinzel as the 7th defenseman. Hawks going to be going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen once again. Rinzel played just over 14 minutes in his return to the lineup on Tuesday. Did snap his 10-game point drought with a primary assist on Bedard's first of his 3 goals on the night, but I did think there were still some shaky moments when Rinzel had the puck on his stick in the defensive zone, but I did feel like his instincts, he did some good things instinctually as the game kind of progressed offensively. Kind of an up and down performance out of Rinzel. Hopefully he'll be a little bit more stable in all facets of the game here tonight. And then rounding things out, Spencer Knight is set to make his 14th start of the season in between the pipes. He's got a 7-3-3 record with a 2.42 goals against average, .924 save percentage, and 1 shutout so far in his 13 outings. Hasn't been all too strong against the Kraken in his career, albeit in a small sample size. Did not play for Chicago in the first meeting. That was Arvid Soderblom who got the start in that one. But Knight is 1-2 with a 3.34 goals against, .891 save percentage, and 3 career starts against the Kraken. All right, there is everything to note on the Blackhawks side of things before the puck drops at 7 p.m. Central Time at the United Center. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, I'll break down everything to know about the Seattle Kraken. But first, I need to talk to you all about Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. And the process is fast, simple, and also private, and it's all handled by real doctors. So go and visit Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL, and you'll also get 15% off on your first order by using our code. Again, that's RUGIET.com, Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL in all caps. And don't forget to use that code LockedOnNHL so they know exactly who sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. As always, just a quick reminder to please go smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you are watching on YouTube right now. If you're tuning in through an audio platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be, please go and rate and review the show as well. That's also 100% free and really does help me out in growing my platform. Segment 2 on today's episode, the Blackhawks, they've been on an excellent run since the first meeting against the Kraken just about 2.5 weeks ago now. Seattle has kind of been on a little bit of a roller coaster ride ever since, going up and down in their last few games. They're 3-3-1 in 7 contests. Since the first meeting, entering the United Center here tonight. That has them currently at 9-5-5 on the year, 1 point behind the Chicago Blackhawks in the current standings, which now that this is the 20th game of the year for the Blackhawks, reaching that quarter mark of the season, the standings start to become a little bit more important, something I'm definitely going to start talking about more here on the show, given that the Blackhawks are in the position that they're in, surprising everyone with their competitiveness through the opening 19-20 games here of the season. They're currently 1 point ahead of the Kraken in the standings, so not only is this one you want to go and get revenge in because Seattle beat you in the first meeting, the Blackhawks also, I believe, have just 4 wins in 13 games against Seattle since they became a franchise in 21-22, but you want to, go in whenever you have a back-to-back, you want to go and get the win in that front end so you don't have as much pressure on the group that next night. And, next thing you know, you're worried about losing 2 games in a row if you go and drop the front end. So this is one that the Blackhawks should be motivated to get for many different reasons. You want to keep riding the hot stretch, and you also want to beat a team that you're right ahead of in the standings, and that's the case here tonight with the Blackhawks having 24 points with their 10-5-4 record. Seattle right behind them with 23 points with 9 wins and 5 overtime losses already through their opening 19 games. Seattle is coming off of a 4-2 loss to the Red Wings in their last time out on Tuesday, but they did have points in 3 games in a row prior to that loss as they defeated the San Jose Sharks and the Winnipeg Jets and then suffered an overtime loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So like I said, kind of going up and then kind of going back down. That's been the case of the season for Seattle, but they only have 5 games in which they haven't recorded a point so far here this season. And as we saw in the first meeting, they remain a group that gets it done with their defense and goaltending. They are 7th in the NHL in goals against, 7th in the NHL in team save percentage, and also 15th in shots on goal against per game. Oddly enough, when diving through the statistics, with Seattle being such a strong defensive bunch, I thought this would have been one of the strongest points of their team, but they're actually 30th out of 32 clubs on the penalty kill this year at just 70.4%. So despite, defense and goaltending kind of being their forte, that's one clear area of weakness so far for them through 19 games. And the Hawks, they went 0-4 on the man advantage in Tuesday's win over the Flames. However, they are still 6-16 on the power play over their last 6 contests. So getting the human backboard tonight maybe, helps the Blackhawks go and net a power play goal against this shoddy Kraken penalty kill. And offensively for Seattle, it remains a struggle. They're 28th in the league in goals scored per game at just 2.68. Jordan Eberle and Jaden Schwartz, two veterans of the forward group, are actually their leading scorers with only 14 points on the year. I mean, Connor Bedard has more than double that right now. Matty Beniers right behind them with only 13 points. He's really, the young creator of that forward group, but hasn't been the strongest start to the season for them. But like I said, offense isn't really Seattle's forte this season under head coach Lane Lambert. As far as the projected lineup goes for the Kraken, I am recording this. Kraken probably are getting on the ice for the morning skate right now, literally as I'm recording this, but the projected lineup for tonight, Mason Marchment, Matty Beniers, and Jordan Eberle as the top line. Physical, Mason Marchment on the left wing, while Beniers and Eberle are more the key offensive pieces. Jaden Schwartz, Chandler Stevenson, and Yanni Neiman as the second line for Seattle. This was at least their lineup last time out on Tuesday against the Detroit Red Wings. Line 3 for the Kraken, Ellie Tolvanen, Berkeley Catton, and Shane Wright. A very exciting and young third line there for Seattle. Berkeley Catton, I believe, had his first NHL goal over the weekend, or was it over the weekend? Yeah, it wasn't in that game against Detroit on Tuesday. I believe it came over the weekend. If you've been listening or watching to the show for a long time, then you know I was super high on Berkeley Catton before he got drafted by Seattle. Shane Wright hasn't been maybe the transition to the NHL or the start to his young career that everyone was looking for, but still relatively early in his development process. And then Ty Cartier, Freddie Gaudreau, and Ryan Winterton expected to round things out as the fourth line. Jared McCann and Capo Caco are currently on injured reserve, banged up for the Kraken. Don't expect either of them to play here this evening. And then defensively, Vince Dunn and Adam Larson. Vince Dunn has been a key offensive piece for Seattle so far this year, as he has 12 points on the season. Charlie Lindgren, not Charlie Lindgren. Is it Ryan Lindgren? Yeah, I think it's Ryan Lindgren, and Brandon Montour has the second defensive pairing, and then Riker Evans, who has fared well against the Blackhawks in his career for whatever reason, along with Jamie Alexiak, who scored in the first meeting, rounding things out as the third defensive pairing. Joey Decord, I'm guessing, given his pedigree against the Blackhawks, he's going to be back in net tonight. 5-0-1 record, 5-1-0 record, with a 1.68 goals against, 937 save percentage, and 6 career starts against the Blackhawks. And as I mentioned in segment 1, stopped 29 of the 30 shots that he faced in the first meeting to pick up the win. As far as my 3 keys to victory tonight for the Blackhawks to keep it rolling, get their 6th win in the last 7 games, my number 1 key to victory is, speaking of Joey Decord, they got to make life tougher on him. The Hawks, I thought they'd done a good job of, they got a couple of key redirect goals. Colton Dach had the big redirection for the game winner against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They also scored a couple of, Landon Slaggert had a redirect goal against the New Jersey Devils. Those are the type of goals the Blackhawks might have to scrap their way to tonight, with Joey Decord just seemingly always having their number. Got to make life more difficult on him. Get bodies in front of the net. Try to get those redirections and get pucks on net whenever you can. Make those simplified plays. Take a page out of the Louis Crevier playbook. I think that's what the Blackhawks need to do. Can't just throw just the standard shots at Joey Decord. Gotta get some bodies in front of him and make life difficult. And I feel like they've done a decent job of that recently, so let's go ahead and keep that up. My number 2 key to victory for the Blackhawks tonight is they can't be playing from behind going into the third period. We learned that the hard way in the first meeting back on November 3rd. The Seattle Kraken know how to play with the lead in that final frame. They're 7-0-0 this year when trailing after 2 periods. And when they're tied going into the third period this season, they're just 1-0-4. They've only won 1 of those 5 games. So Blackhawks, don't put yourself with your back against the wall late in this contest. We know this is a Kraken group that knows how to close. So I'd love to see the Blackhawks, who have done a really good job at getting off to fast starts this year. They've scored first in 14 of their 19 games, but go and keep it up through the second period. And I do think the middle frames have been a little bit better here lately. Unfortunate that they gave up a goal in the final minute to the Calgary Flames on Tuesday that cut into their deficit. Still hasn't been, perfect in the second. I think the Hawks need to do a better job of keeping their foot on the pedal through these opening two periods, because trying to come back from behind is just not a recipe for success against this strong defensive Kraken group. And then my third key to victory tonight is to get that power play back on track after the 0-for-4 showing on Tuesday. You get Tyler Bertuzzi back. If you can find a way to get a goal against this lowly Kraken penalty kill, especially when usually Seattle games are close, contested, low-scoring affairs, taking advantage on the power play of their bad penalty kill will definitely go a long way for the Blackhawks here tonight. And if you can cash in on those power plays, obviously, with their struggles at getting pucks past Joey Decord in the past, that's just only going to make life easier for them. So we'd love to see the Blackhawks man advantage get back on the stat sheet here this evening. That's going to take care of everything before the puck drops at 7 p.m. Central Time tonight at the United Center. Coming up in just a moment, before I close out today's show, still have to discuss Roman Kantserov gunning for KHL history as a 21-year-old. But first, I also got to show some love to another one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NBA season is here, and like the Blackhawks, the Chicago Bulls are also off to a fast start, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand late, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who will score the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks. And you can also wager on Matas, Buzelis, Kobe White, and other key member of the Bulls. And you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a much bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late fourth quarter push. And right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com or go and download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to sign up and play your game now with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 3, I mentioned on yesterday's show that I definitely want to start getting into prospects more and more here on the show, which is something I usually do frequently, but I've just kind of been caught up in all the winning that the Blackhawks have been doing through their opening 19 games. So it's kind of been thrown to the side lately as a result of that, but prospect talk will be getting picked back up here on Locked On Blackhawks. And one of the several Hawks prospects who is lighting it up early on this season is none other than 2023 second-round pick Roman Kantserov. My goodness, Blackhawks fans, this kid is balling out of control right now over in the KHL. Scored a highlight reel goal on Tuesday for his 18th goal of the year, and then actually just before hitting record on today's show, Roman found the back of the net once again, might have even ended up being the game winner for Metallurg Magnitogorsk, but that now gives him a league-leading 19 goals on the season. He's also second in the entire KHL in points as at only 21 years of age. I cannot even begin to describe how impressive the start to this season has been for Roman Kantserov. And, I knew it was going to be a key year for him and his development and having the experience that he's had in the last couple of years over in the KHL. I felt like he was going to have his best season over there yet, but I did not expect this out of Mr. Kantserov so far this year. Been a huge factor in Metallurg Magnitogorsk, currently leading the entire Eastern Conference with 46 points through their opening 29 games, 19 goals, 32 points in 29 games for Roman Kantserov so far this year. And I believe, Blackhawks fans, according to my research, puts him in position to be gunning for a little bit of KHL history. According to Quant Hockey, the most productive season by a 21-year-old or younger in league history over in the KHL was from defenseman Alexander Nikishin, who's, of course, over in the NHL right now with the Carolina Hurricanes. That came back in the 2022-2023 campaign when he recorded 55 points in 65 games, which as a defenseman is pretty darn remarkable. And then Dmitry Buchelnikov, second-round selection for the Detroit Red Wings last year. He had 54 points in 65 games for CSKA Moscow, I believe it was. And then third most productive season from a 21-year-old or younger in KHL history was from Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov back in 2018-19 when he had 51 points in 57 games. From what I've seen and all the research I've dug up, Blackhawks fans, there has not been a player 21 years old or younger in KHL history to have a point per game margin above 1 if you've played at least 40 games. So Roman Kantserov being above the point per game plateau right here, right now, is we're starting to get towards that midway point of the KHL season, is undoubtedly impressive, being the second leading scorer in the entire league, first in goals at 21 years old over in the top league over in Russia. Unbelievable stuff from Roman Kantserov, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see him chase that point per game plateau that, from what I could tell based on my digging and the research I did on the internet, has not been done by someone who's played in more than 40 games. Knock on wood that Roman is going to stay healthy, but looks sure on his way like he's going to cross over that 40-game margin. And my, oh my, if he could put up 60, 70 points as a 21-year-old this year before hopefully jumping over to North America and joining the Blackhawks organization for 26-27, golly gee. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that while I have seen Kantserov getting some buzz from the national media, I still feel like it should be more. I know we're only 30 games in here. We're still early on in the season, but the type of production that Roman Kantserov is producing right now, it's put him in rarefied air. And it's going to be very exciting to see him gun for that point per game margin that I do not believe has been accomplished by a player 21 years old or younger in KHL history. Roman Kantserov continues to be excellent for Metallurg Magnitogorsk early on in the 25-26 season. It's not even early on anymore, as they're starting to get to that midway point. Could not be more stoked for what Roman Kantserov is doing. He's been a prospect that I've been excited about and talked about a lot on this show over the last couple of years. I think he's going to be a key puzzle piece here in Chicago, and I don't really know how you could deny that after seeing what he's done so far as a 21-year-old in his opening 29 games this season. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and check me out on X at Jack Bushman2. My Strictly Blackhawks account can be found at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, go Hawks. Let's keep it rolling. I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.